on my TV. Okay, so she's going to count us in, and then you'll just follow my lead.
Sounds good.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. This is the Ask Dr. Renee show. I am your host, Dr. Renee. And tonight, and if you've never been to our show, never watched, our show is here to motivate and inspire you to live the life that you deserve. Let's face it, you only get one life. This is not a dress rehearsal, so whatever it is you want to do, you should do it right now. My guests in the past have been bloggers, entertainers. We've had Teddy Riley. We've had Michelle Williams of Destiny Child. Last night we had Tamra Floyd of naturalhairrules.com. She's a 6-figure blogger. But it's not even about money as much as it is about having the life that you want. So being able to spend time with your family and friends and vacation when you want to. Last week we had Tiffany Aliche, the Budgetnista, and she talked about how important and what success means to her is being able to do exactly what she wants when she wants to do it. So tonight our guest is Elayne Fluker, and Elayne does a whole lot of really cool stuff, and so I'm really excited to talk to her. So welcome to the show, Elayne.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So let's get started. So Elayne, you're from New York, which is one of my favorite places to be.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you were growing up, what did you want to do? What did you want to be?
I have always loved writing from the very beginning. Since I always say before I even knew how to write, I would scribble on paper, and my mom still has all of those papers around here somewhere. But I would scribble on papers and pretend to write stories that were always about a little girl. I don't know if that's because I was the youngest. I certainly wasn't the smallest, but maybe because I was the youngest in my family. I always loved, and then was a little girl, or once upon a time, a little girl did this. So a lot of my stories started that way. But I always loved writing, but I didn't know at that time, and even when I got older and went to college, that was something I could do as a career. That wasn't until after college and after trying to get into the entertainment industry and those kinds of things that I figured out, oh, I can be a writer and later an editor and actually make a living off this. So that was always something that I loved to do, and it wasn't until later that it became what I did.
So what college did you go to?
Hampton University. Okay. Yes! Hampton in Virginia.
And what did you major in English or creative writing?
No, in the end, I ended up majoring in English and getting my degree in English. But when I started, I went in as a business major. This was in 1991, so it was just what I thought people did. You were a business major. But I had always hated math and always hated accounting and always hated all of those things. So, of course, I'm going to be a business major, right? I don't know. It didn't make any sense. But it wasn't until I believe it was my sophomore year that I was speaking to a counselor and advisor, and they talked to me about my writing, which I'd always done well in, even in school, honors, English classes, and all of that, because it was something that came naturally for me. And they told me about opportunities that existed within writing, or within not even writing, an English degree. So some people got an English degree and went on to teach, or worked in communications, or, obviously publishing or magazines. So that's when it became open to me of the possibility, which is, what it's all about, figuring out what the possibilities are. So that's when I changed my major and I started to pursue a degree in English.
That is cool. So, so when you majored in English, what does your mother think?
I think my mother was just happy I was at college. When I chose to go to Hampton, I honestly, when I was in high school, I was a mess girl in high school, but I didn't even think about going to college. I think Hampton was this sounds terrible, but it honestly was one of the acceptance letters that was on the table, and I was just like, fine, I'll go here. I had never been to school, knew nothing about it. We didn't really talk about college a lot when I was growing up, but my mom and I had a discussion, if you can call it a discussion. She told me what I was going to do. Had a discussion about it. I'm 18 years old. Like, I don't know why I have to go to college. No one else in our family, at that time had gone to college. And she basically said, oh, you're going. End of discussion. And that was that. So I was going, and I said, oh, I'll go here. And it was honestly the best experience of my life, Renee. I really cherished those years and cherished the friends that I made from that time who are still very dear friends today. My girls and I have a reunion, so to speak, every year. We get together. We call it Ladies Lock-In. Sometimes the babies are there. Sometimes they're not. But it's been an amazing, 25 or however many years since being there. So that's how it happened. So all that to say, when I changed my major, I think she was just like, fine, long as you stay there, it's fine.
Well, yeah. Well, then that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. So what were your aspirations when you got out? Now, did you do internships and all that stuff? Or, I don't know, with the English major?
No, well, I didn't in school. I didn't know about it as much as they talk about now interning while you're in school. I think other majors probably did that, finance and that kind of thing. But for an English major, there wasn't really anything that I knew of. I shouldn't say it didn't exist. So when I got out, my family had moved to Georgia my last year of high school from New York. So I was here for like half a year or a year, and then I went away to school. So after school, I came back to Georgia for a year. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I still wasn't sure. I didn't want to be a teacher, even though I, had an English degree. So I remember saying to my family after applying to like LaFayette, I really loved entertainment in addition to writing. And I remember saying to my family after I'd applied to like LaFayette Records and BMG and all of these things via snail mail, if anybody remembers that. So you sent it off, your resume, and you got a rejection letter back in the mail, which they're still around here somewhere too. So after going through that, I just told my parents, I'm going to New York and I'm going to work someplace like Essence. That's what I literally said to them. I'm going back home and I'm going to work at some place like Essence. No connections there, no idea. So I ended up going back. A friend of mine, Philip Shung, was working at a magazine at the time called Sportswear International, and he got me an internship there. I moved in as a roommate with my best friend, April, and she and I lived in the Bronx on 219th Street. And she was going after her master's for teaching, and I was pursuing a career in journalism. And I started with that internship first. And during that time, I always say I gently stalked the HR person at Essence, because Essence was my goal. It was a gentle stalking, light stalking, calling her, trying to get in touch with her. And then my cousin, who actually passed away, God bless him, Dwayne, he and I were chatting, and I mentioned to him that I wanted to work at Essence, and he happened to know her. And my cousin, was a great person, but, might not be the person that you think has corporate connections. I'll just say that. But he did. And then he said, well, I can get you, to talk to her, et cetera. And I remember when I came in, she told me that she didn't know, what to expect based on who my cousin was. But she ended up letting me in. And I remember when I went there, I said, I just need to be in the building. So they didn't have a position, but they did have an internship available. So I started off at Essence. My career in media really started with internships. Unpaid internships. I might have got a little stipend for like the train, which was maybe $2 at that time or probably less, and some lunch. But other than that, everything was unpaid. You were doing it because you really just wanted to be there.
So, first of all, my friend Jada Russell says because I supposedly stalked her too. She called it stalking with a purpose.
Yes, gentle stalking with a purpose.
Yes.
I say gentle so we don't get arrested or anything.
Right. But I think that a lot of millennials don't understand that. You have to, if you really want something, you have to persevere, and you cannot take no for an answer. And there is a right way to do it so that you don't mess up a relationship, and you probably will get what you want in the end. I did that for the first, the OBGYN that I worked with. I literally called her office every day for months while I was in my first year of undergrad because I wanted to work there in the summer. And I just kept calling. And guess who was there that summer? And the nurse mentioned, she goes, oh, you were the one that kept calling. That's good that you kept calling. Hey, you know what I mean? It got me there. Right. And I did, I think, 4 summers with her. And so it worked. And then the same thing with Jada. Jada, her company's called High Style Marketing, and that was the first person I worked with in PR, and I had no idea what it was, and I worked in fashion PR, and if anyone knows me, they know I hate shopping. I don't like fashion, but I went to a whole bunch of fashion shows, but I learned public relations from her, and it was literally, I saw her on Bridezilla, I paused the TV, I was like, what is her name? I'm Googling, and it was ridiculous, and just so happened that she ended up standing right next to me at a conference, and I was like, oh my God, that's her. And so,
and that's how you got the, that's true. I think, as you said, with the gentle stalking, but not feeling entitled to the position. Right. I think that was, the difference. One thing to be persistent just because you think you deserve this, and you do deserve it, but just the idea of making sure that you are showing why their no should be a yes.
Yes,
that's exactly what I would say. Like, what are you presenting? Even though for me, for example, I didn't have a lot of experience because I was maybe 23, fresh out of school. I had writings and things that I had done, but I hadn't been published and that kind of thing. But I had passion for why I would contribute to being at the magazine at that time, or what I would do while there, or how hard I would work. Sometimes that's all you got. This is how hard I would work to support you, whoever that person is, or support the product or brand or business. So that's the other part of it, too, I think is important.
Exactly. I totally agree. And I think in this day and age, I actually had to tell somebody this not too long ago. You can't just send one email. First of all, the
Right.
person probably gets a ton of emails a day.
Right.
Second of
Right.
all, you just don't know. Did they read it? Did you send a return receipt? Are you sure that they actually read it? I mean, you just never know. Something could have happened and their email wasn't working that day. You don't know. But you can't
Right.
assume, well, I haven't heard from them, so clearly they're not interested. You can't just blow it off like that.
And I will mention, I agree, I will mention too, there's a great tool that I use to help us because it's, you need to follow up, but then on our end too, sometimes it's difficult to follow up because you can't remember, did you send them a response? And now we're cleaning out our emails even more because things get full, so then you don't know if you responded. So a tool that I use is called Rebump. It's Rebump, I think it's rebump.cc. And you can set it up where you send the first email. So if I send you an email, then I can set up the follow-up emails for maybe a week apart or two or however long apart. And the follow-up would say, hey, Dr. Renee, I sent you this email. Just want to make sure you got it. You put in your own language.
Right.
And then your original is beneath it. So there might be other tools like that, but I always tell people about that because you can do a series of 4 or so emails. And for me, it increased the response to my emails about 70-something% as far as the follow-ups, because people would usually respond after the third one. And at first I was like, aren't they going to be annoyed? But most people will respond and say, thank you so much for following up. I missed this, or I appreciate it, or they would give you the answer. I use it primarily for podcast guests, not in general people, but people I want to make sure I follow up with, because as you said, we're all inundated with emails and information. So that's a great tool for people to check out. It's no sponsor of mine or anything. It's just a great one that I love and I share with people for productivity's sake.
Well, I hope that my executive producer wrote that down.
I'll send you the link.
Thank you. But that's that. I mean, it's so important. Everyone says I'm the follow-up queen. They're like, "How do you keep track?" I said, "I don't know. I just do." Okay.
Yeah.
But it's very important. So you got to Essence. So what was your duties at Essence?
Actually, when I started there, Essence had a small business magazine called Income Opportunities. So she actually got me an internship there. It was on Essence was on one floor at that time. And Latina was on a different floor. They owned Latina magazine at that time too. But Income Opportunities was on the same floor. She told me that was all that they had as far as an internship. And that was the example of when I said, I don't care, I just need to be in the building. Because I knew at least if I was in close proximity to Essence, there was a way that I would work my way over there. So I started as an intern at that time, filing, faxing. I got to write a couple of stories for Income Opportunities. Those were my first big published pieces. And then I remember hearing that Susan Taylor, who was the editor-in-chief of Essence at that time, one of my many mentors, and she was looking for an assistant who was like a communications coordinator, because she was getting at that time tons of mail correspondence, all this stuff, and needed someone to assist in responding. So, I mean, Susan Taylor, I got to go for that. I got to try it, and the Linda Villarosa, lovely woman who was the executive editor at that time, I believe she and I met. I don't know. I can't remember exactly how, but I remember her encouraging me to go for it. And go for it meant writing a letter in Susan Taylor's voice that was supposed to be from her to a reader, or in response. I think it was in response to a letter from a reader. I had never met her, or, maybe her floating down the hallway. I probably saw her pass in the wind, but I didn't know, her voice, but just from what I knew of her column at that time in The Spirit. So I, at 23, maybe 24, had to write this letter in the voice of Susan Taylor of how I would respond to a reader, etc. And that is what I did. Ended up meeting her. She couldn't believe that I wrote that letter. She loved it. And that's my first gig with Essence, was as communication coordinator or assistant communication coordinator, whatever it was, for Susan Taylor. And that's how that started. And then from there, I went on to become editorial assistant in the entertainment department, which it's funny how life sort of circles back. I was trying for entertainment jobs when I first started out. And then this was like ideal editorial entertainment. And then I continued to rise there. I was at Essence for about 8 or 9 years before I moved on.
And so where did you go after that?
Essence launched a magazine called Suede Magazine at that time. And you remember Suede? I was only 4 issues, but it's like art. They're like art books, but collectibles now. I was tapped to be the editor for Suede, and I moved over, and then Suzanne Boyd was brought in from Canada to be the editor-in-chief when it officially launched. I worked on the prototype and hired a team and that kind of thing. And then, Suede was out for 4 issues. And then, so I moved from Essence. I was entertainment editor when I left Essence. And now Corey Murray is entertainment editor, another Hamptonian. Yay, Corey! And so Corey is there, but I moved over to Suede, and I was there, for all the 4 issues. I was managing director and special, I can't remember, girl, so many titles, so many years ago. So special projects editor or celebrity projects editor. In any case, then Time Inc. owned Essence at the time, or they were partners at the time, and they decided to close Suede. And I remember I was on vacation at home during that time, and they called me and they were like, yeah, so the magazine is closing. You got to come in and get your stuff, and, it's over. And I had that moment where you have that wave of fear of, oh my gosh, what's happening? But then there was the other part of me that just was like, okay, it's time to move on. Because it was a tough time, stressful time. Working on a launch is stressful enough, and a lot of other things. So it felt like, okay, this is closure. It's time to move on to something else. Plus, luckily for me, my severance reflected my whole time at Essence and not just the few months at Suede. So, after 8 or 9 years with the company, my severance was pretty decent. So I had time to breathe and think about what was next. And that was that.
So what did you do after that?
After that, what did I do after that? I was living in Jersey at the time. I had some time off. I did some work at People magazine, or People Books, actually. Wrote for their Sexiest Men Alive, did profiles for that. And I think it was Celebrity Weddings, which sadly a lot of those relationships have broken up now. But
don't mention that.
Not my fault. I had nothing to do with that. But yeah, I worked on those. I worked in radio too as a talent booker for a radio station, which was great, Kiss FM in New York. Which has changed now to something else, but right. I did that also. And I also, it's funny, during that time, I think that was my first major foray into entrepreneurship, because during the time that I was at Suede, during that time too, social media wasn't, even around, and even emails were just sort of becoming the thing. This is how old I am. So anyway, people used to call each other to find personal assistants. Like, people would call me and be like, hey, I'm looking for an assistant. Do you know anyone? Or this celebrity, a lot of publicists I was in touch with would say, this celebrity is looking for someone. Do you know anyone? And I thought of starting a personal assistant agency that worked only with celebrities. It was called Elite PA, so Elite Personal Assistants. And I did that. I launched that from my second bedroom in Montclair, New Jersey. I reached out to people and told them what I was doing. I got a little website put up. It was actually kind of cute. And I ended up having several clients who are big name. Now, it's funny, people say, why don't you tell who it was? I still don't share their names, just because privacy, or was a big confidentiality, I should say, was a big thing for me. I'm sure they wouldn't mind. But yeah, it's people that you see on TV now, on big time shows, and in, the media and in movies and all that stuff. But it just snowballed into a business. It became something. And I had assistants. Most of them were in LA. I guess people in LA use assistants more than in New York. But it was mostly clients in LA, and they would pay me, and then I would pay their assistants. And I had people out there who would interview, because we didn't do Skype and all that stuff then. So I had people in California I knew who would go interview the potential assistant. It was a whole operation. I just, from an entrepreneur perspective, I just love problem solving in creative ways, and in that way. And that was something that I did. And I will tell you, it's the business that I think about that I feel like, man, if I would have kept that going, what could it have been today? Or like, could I have sold it to American Express concierge or something? You have those thoughts of, oh, if I would have kept that going. But the reason that I didn't is because I was offered a job at Vibe magazine. I became the managing editor. Danielle Smith, it was her second time going back to Vibe, it was her first time returning, but her second time at Vibe as editor-in-chief. And a friend mentioned to me that, oh, did you see Danielle Smith is the new editor of Vibe? And I thought, oh, I haven't worked with her before, which is sort of how I decide a lot of the career things that I do. Like, oh, I haven't experienced that before. I haven't worked with that person. I want to work with them. So long story short, after a few interviews, I ended up becoming managing editor of Vibe, and that was my next position after Essence. So I still had the business going for a little while, and then it became too much, and too much to handle both, I should say. And instead of saying forget it and moving to the entrepreneurship side, I stuck with, my career in media. So I was at Vibe for a few years, and then I went on to digital media after that.
Now, the digital media, was that your own business, or that was working for someone?
No, while I was at Vibe, I started seeing that digital was becoming much more popular. I worked on Vibe.com, and that was around 2004 or so. So, magazines and such didn't put as much energy into their websites, but They were starting to more and more. And I've been good at, I will say, watching my industry being media and how it changes and evolves and seeing what's new and not jumping at everything like the shiny apples, but really being conscious of what's working for people, what isn't, what's the new space that I need to learn a little bit about. And digital at that time was a thing. So I mentioned again to another friend of mine, Nataki, that I was like, I think my next move is going to be into digital. And she used to work at AOL in DC, but someone she knew just became the editor of iVillage.com in New York. So I ended up meeting with her, Jenny Baird, who's also someone who's a mentor and a great person who gave me my shot in digital, really. I remember meeting with her, and at the time they didn't have anything, but I told her I was interested in digital. I hadn't really, done it before, a full iVillage.com, which is today.com now, Today Show. But iVillage.com was a full digital platform, no magazine. So it was definitely different. But I had so much experience in entertainment, fashion and beauty, style, and all of that. So we talked, and she didn't have anything at the time. Then months later or so, she got in touch with me because their editorial director of beauty and style and entertainment was leaving and going elsewhere. And she wanted to know if I'd give it a try. And she basically told me, all right, are you ready to jump in, and sink or swim? And I said, absolutely. So Jenny gave me my shot, and that was my first foray into digital at iVillage.com, which was a massive site, hundreds of millions of views a month. It was one of the first online communities for women. So it was a great place to sort of get my feet wet.
I remember they had a little TV show, too, that went along with
it. Yeah,
it.
they did have a
TV
show. I think I might have come on after the TV show, but they did have one.
Yeah,
they sure
taped
did.
here briefly at NBC Towers, and I went to the, we had a NABJ meeting on their set.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, see, yep, iVillage. Yeah, so that was my first one. And then since then, I've been in digital media. Even when working at magazines, I've been more on the digital side. So I will say, it was a smart move. I didn't know just how smart at that time because of how things have changed, certainly over the past years. But that was my first foray into digital.
That is cool. So when did Chic Rebellion come to be?
In 2012, Chic Rebellion came to be. I was watching a reality show, just as a lot of us did. This was, like I said, back in maybe 2011, 2012. And it was a show that I loved at the time. It was like the first, I would say it's Love and Hip Hop. It was early on when it first, I don't know if that's when it first came on, but it was early on for the show. I loved it, like, oh, this is so different. And they're going to show this part of the, the experience of women in the industry and the wives and et cetera. And I remember watching one day and it just went left. They started fighting. That's all I can say about it. I don't know what happened, but it was the first time of a big fight, at least one that I saw on the, and
TV.
One girl was trying to pull the other one's ear off and there was blood coming out. I turned it off. I remember I turned it off and I don't know if I even posted or tweeted or whatever. And I was just like, they hate us. Not the show, but I thought about the networks. Like, why would you show women doing this to each other? Not to be holier than thou, but I was so overwhelmed by witnessing the violence and the celebration of the violence. That's really what it was, right? Violence is everywhere, but it felt like a celebration. So I wanted to do something different. And I thought, I'm going to create an online platform for women, especially women of color, creating videos, showing a different side of us. And that morphed into what later became chicrebellion.tv, which at the time was the first and only internet TV network for women of color. So we did videos and web series featuring our friend Karen Taylor Bass, had the show Brand New Mom. And so I did that and I launched with 4 series during that time, which was a lot. We shot them all over the summer. I had a full-time job at the time. And like I said, it was a lot, but it was a lot of fun. And I'm glad that I did it because it was an amazing experience. So I was a producer and I found all of the talent, which lucky for me, I know so many fantastic women. Ty Beauchamp is someone else we talked about. Ty was a host of a show on the network. Bren Herrera, who has a book out right now on pressure cooking. Brilliant. She and I worked together when I was at Latina. And there was another for Tamika White, who has a company called White Noise, who works in the fashion industry. She's a brand ambassador and a style enthusiast, so she had a show as well. So these were all fantastic women that I knew already, and I felt like they should have shows. I still feel like that for all of them, actually. Hopefully I can help them do that. But so this is how I started, and that's how Chic Rebellion came to be, chicrebellion.tv. And Chic Rebellion is my company overall. That is a production company, and now we produce content for whether it's companies or entrepreneurs or businesses or brands. So that's how that sort of started, though.
So when you did that, when you did chicrebellion.tv, did you you just put it up on your own platform online, correct?
Yes, I had a website built. People were asking me at the time why not do it on YouTube, which a lot of people were starting to do around then, or had already begun doing at that time. But I wanted it to have a certain look. I wanted it to have, a certain aesthetic. I wanted it to feel like someplace, a destination at that time, even though now people rarely go to destination sites. But at that time, I really wanted it to feel like a destination and something that represented us. So I created a website and, had it designed and built and all that stuff, and spent a fortune doing that. So yeah, it was its own website. At the time, it was on Drupal. Not to get too technical. Then I moved over to WordPress. But yep, had a website built for it, and videos. Videos were uploaded directly to the site at first, and then I started doing them as embedding YouTube videos.
Okay.
And if people are interested, you can still see the videos, the series, and all the episodes on YouTube. What is it? YouTube is Chic Rebellion, CHIC Rebellion, all together.
And we'll put that in the box below.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that is really cool.
Thank you. It's amazing. It's funny, the way I launched the shows or decided what shows to launch at the time of when I was at iVillage, as I mentioned, they were owned by, at the time they were owned by NBC. And this woman, Lauren Lasnik, I want to say her name is. She was the president of Bravo at the time, or high up in Bravo. She came to speak to all of us about, I don't even remember what, but one of the things I remember her saying is when she thought about the format for Bravo, and this is Bravo before Real Housewives, before everything. This is when Queer Eye for the Straight Guy was the big hit show for Bravo that brought Bravo out, right? And someone may have asked her how she came up with the idea for Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, or knew that it was going to be a hit. And she said she looked at the shows that were most popular. So, for example, Project Runway, Fashion, or when she looked at shows to create, she looked at Queer Eye for the Straight Guy and what was most popular about that. So, fashion, created Project Runway, design, created other shows, and she looked at all the things: design, food, fashion, and then just lifestyle. So when I looked at chicrebellion.tv, I did the same thing. I thought, okay, Ty brings the style and entrepreneur empowerment for women. Karen had the mom experience, the lifestyle. Bren is all about food. She's a private chef, a writer, and all that. And Tamika was fashion, and we did a sort of a reality show around her life at that time, which was called White Noise. So I looked at what Lauren did. Of course, she had a much bigger budget than I did, but I looked at that and how she built out Bravo as a way of building out Chic Rebellion TV and being able to offer a variety of content for people. So
now, did you get sponsors and everything?
I did get sponsors. We had Macy's was a sponsor. Lexus was a sponsor at one time. BET was a sponsor. Who else? Sony also. We had a few Kevin Hart movies that were sponsors on there. So that was good. And then, but then it's funny, I got to a point where after a couple years, I started syndicating content from other producers, which was fantastic. So Kyra Akita, the actress, is someone who had a series on our network, and a lot of other fantastic women. But then I got to the point, honestly, in 2015, where I felt like I missed producing original content. That was really and is really my passion. And for video, that's, very expensive. As I said, I spent a lot of money, invested a lot of money in Chic Rebellion. But then I wasn't as excited about it anymore. Still excited about serving the audience. But I went through a period where I wasn't excited about the content because I felt like I was doing what everyone else had started doing at that time, which was sort of curating content from around the web. People were doing great videos everywhere at that point. So it's sort of like just finding things that were fantastic, that fit your brand, but it wasn't things that I was producing myself, because at that time I was still a one-woman show other than hiring freelancers and production people. So that's when I started to think, going into the end of 2015, what can I do that's really going to speak to who I am now, things that I had gone through personal development-wise, and learning about myself more, what I want to create moving forward. And that's when I moved into really pushing Support is Sexy as the lead brand, the thing that I would focus on, especially because I had that experience for the past couple of years as a woman entrepreneur and going through times where I felt sort of alone. Of course, there's tons of groups out there for women and support women, but I didn't feel like I really had the connection or information or someplace I could go and really feel that support in the way that I wanted to. And that's when Support is Sexy began to evolve. So I decided to stop pushing Chic Rebellion in the form that it was about the videos and web series, really making it into a production company that'll create tons of different projects that I hope to do down the line, and things are in development and that kind of thing. But really pushing Support is Sexy and myself as a host of that show to support women entrepreneurs. And that evolved into later it becoming the podcast that it is today, and the mission of really letting women know that having it all doesn't mean doing it all alone.
So when did you start Support is Sexy?
The podcast or the podcast itself started July 4th, 2016. Yes, ma'am. And so far we have 60,000 downloads, which I'm very excited about. We're reaching listeners in 82 countries, so it's continuing to steadily grow. My goal is at least 100,000 downloads by 1 year, which will be July 4th of this year. So it's continuing to grow. And what's been fantastic about it, of course, is just the feedback from people, not just, oh, this is great, I love it, even though I'll take it, that's fantastic, but really getting emails from people saying that they've launched businesses based on something that they heard on the show, or they found books mentioned that so interesting, or a guest so inspiring. And I get emails like that now literally every day. Or someone just asking a question or for advice or for a resource. So that was the thing that I really wanted, that kind of engagement, and around people not being afraid to ask for support. That's really what it's all about. So the podcast became the vehicle for that message.
And how many episodes have you had?
Today I posted 183.
Good Lord.
Yes, because it airs 5 times a week.
That was my big selling thing. I kept telling everyone, I don't know how she does it, but she actually has brand new content 5 days a week. I love that.
Yes, ma'am. 5 days a week. It's a lot.
First of all, booking people.
Right.
It can take weeks to book one person for one measly hour.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why Rebump is very good, Renee. So you or your producer, make sure you get that follow-up there. In the beginning, I will say, again, thinking about the fantastic women I knew. Ty's been on the show. Karen's been on the show. Bren, Tamiko, all the women that I love, adore, celebrate all the time anyway. People that I knew and in the industry. I mean, tons. I had a list. I started a spreadsheet, of course. I'm a spreadsheet girl when it comes to that stuff.
I'm Evernote. I have a whole list in Evernote with the check boxes, and I check them off as we get them on.
Exactly. You got to have a spreadsheet. So I have a wish list, of course. I mean, Michelle Obama, Oprah, Sarah Blakely, Whoopi Goldberg, people like that are on my wish list. So those are longer lead people. But then I had the people who I really knew and was like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And they basically were like, when do I show up? Tell me what to do. So in the beginning, it was, I won't say easy, but it was easier as far as having guests, because I had a long list of people that I knew I could talk to. It was just a matter of scheduling. As time went on, I began to learn, I'm sure you know, from booking people, things change, or people's schedules change, or things move around. Next thing you know, you've got a hold here, a hold there. So that has been really the biggest challenge of making sure that I can offer new content 5 days a week. I didn't want to do 7 days. Some people do, but the weekends, I just want to not have to worry about something going up. Because even if I wasn't recording, I'd be looking on a Saturday I just need those 2 days to not have to worry about anything. But then it was good because it pushed me to also do what I call solo episodes, where it's just me talking about, it might be a certain topic or a theme for a week, or it's just me talking about some experience or something that happened that's relative to business, entrepreneurship, women supporting women. So it's good now that it's a mixture of that, and I do at least 4 new interviews a week. Or I might do a week that's, me talking about whatever theme for the week. So for example, I did a series on failure a couple of weeks ago. So 5 days, we talked about different aspects of failure and how to move beyond it. I've done one earlier in the year on vision and talking about creating your vision from thinking about what you want to do to your vision board. So it's been good because it's a challenge to create content every day, quality content. But it's good because it's a commitment. Because now, like I said, people are reaching out like, oh, I listened to you this morning at the gym at 5 a.m. And I'm like, oh, that means I have to actually post at 4 a.m., which is the time that it goes up. So yeah, it's been good. It's a lot. How I do it, you mentioned you were telling people you don't know how I do it. I would say another tip is batching, right? So when I started, I used to do interviews 4 days a week. I just had the schedule open, and for anybody to select on. Acuity is another tool that I use, calendar. You just send people the link and they schedule it. So you can put that link too. But I started, as of this year, Tuesdays and Thursdays are my podcast interview days. So from as early as, I think I started 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. or later if it's somebody on the West Coast and I'm on the East Coast. But those are my podcast days. So this way I know those are the days I do interviews. And then on other days, I can do other things. Like Wednesday is my content day or doing interviews with other people. Friday is my calls for personal coaching or personal development, with me coaching other people or me doing other things. So that's the way I've learned to do it, from listening to other podcasters and people. Batching is very important. So this way you're not all over the place, because I would have like an interview Monday at 3 and then the next one be Thursday at 2, and it was just a little hairy.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
If I didn't do it live, then obviously that would be much easier. But since we do it live, but it's still 5 days. Good Lord. And you know what? The thing is, if I don't have anyone booked, I'm not coming on. So one day I'll look past that.
Do some solo episodes?
No solo. The closest we got to solo was the end of the first season. It was 1 year. But it really wasn't solo, because I had people that were coming on to talk about the show.
Okay.
So I had
a live show is a lot more production.
Yeah, I had I think 4 people that came in and, talked and stuff. But yeah, I haven't done the solo thing yet. And, I used to listen to a friend's podcast, and she would have solo ones sometimes, and they were good. And I was just like, but I don't know. I was like, maybe I need to go and listen to some of yours. That'll give me some ideas.
Yeah. Well, my goal in my head, I want to be the Oprah of podcasting. So I'm like, okay. Oprah had a show 5 days a week, even though she wasn't doing it all by herself. So there's that. But I'm like, I'm going to have a show 5 days a week, so people will know when to expect for me to be there and be able to depend on it, build up a good library of content. So there was a lot of reasons for that. Plus, I started listening to podcasts at the end of, 2015, just because people started talking about them. And I wanted to find business podcasts that I could listen to. A lot of them I love and still listen to, but they were all hosted by white men, or mostly hosted by white men, the business podcasts especially. Not that there aren't a lot of women, sisters doing fantastic shows, but I mean specifically around business. So that was my thing. I said, well, I can, do that. I know so many women, and it just started to evolve into, you know what, this is the way for me to push support is sexy as an idea to people, really get women and everyone to realize the importance of support, but also to take advantage of, again, looking at what's new, this new platform that I think will be good for me. For me, it was good, too, because it was such a lower barrier of entry as opposed to video. So it doesn't take a whole production crew, and people don't have to get their makeup done, that kind of thing. And so I've literally talked to women when they're in their pajamas or in bed, it's just like, I'm not on video, right? But they're fine, and it sounds great, and it just allows everybody easier access to the content, which is what I wanted, and then delivering a great product. So yeah.
So your podcast, you do it via Skype?
I do it via Skype.
Okay. Because I was on a podcast, and that's what he did as well. And somebody else recently in some group I'm in asked what's the best platform, and they named something else. I can't even remember what it was called. I never heard of it.
Was it Zencaster? There's one I think called Zencaster, which I actually want to check out. I have a posted here. And Zoom is another one I've heard people talk about.
So
I haven't used either of those.
My brand business coach, that's what we use. For our video conferences, we use Zoom.
Right. Because Zoom, you can have several people on at once, right?
Right. There's 4 ladies.
And you can see each other.
It's a mastermind of 4 of us. And so, yeah.
That's exactly what I think I'm going to use Zoom for. I have a mastermind starting in the spring.
I was going to get to that. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I was not trying to jump ahead of you, because I know how that is as an interviewer. But just because you mentioned it, I was thinking about Zoom as the option to use, so that people, at least on the first few calls, can see each other, and then we'll do just a call in. So perfect. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, Zoom is cool though. I must say, I do like it. It's good. It's a good platform. I used to do this as a podcast. So what would happen is, we had the live show, and then for another hour and a half or so, I'd be sitting there getting all the SEO straight for YouTube. Then I'd go over to my website, and there was some things I had to do over there. And before the night was over, it would be on my, whatever you call it on iTunes. It would be under Ask Dr. Renee, and it would have it. So I haven't done that in a long time, and there's been people saying I need to do it again, and we'll see. Like, what I was told was that, because what I did originally was audio, but then I was told that video podcasts, there's fewer video podcasts than there are audio podcasts. So they were like, you won't get lost in the shuffle because there's not a ton of them. So then it would be the video over there. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I have my video. Well, it's not video. I have the audio on Elayne Fluker YouTube, which is something you can do through Libsyn, is the syndication service that I use. So they allow you to be able to post to SoundCloud. It's distribution basically. So in addition to iTunes, SoundCloud, and you can also have it go to YouTube for your audio, which at first I thought, well, why should I do that? But then I can't remember what I was listening to, and people were saying for the sake of search and SEO, it's great to also have it be on YouTube. And also, even though it's not a video, it's a picture, but you can still listen to the audio there if that's where people are searching. So if it's as easy as possible to be in as many places as possible, I say do it. But other than that, I think you have to pick your platform and what works best for you.
Definitely. And you know what? The way that mine's was, it was Blueberry is the name of it's a plugin that was on WordPress. They only went to iTunes, so people who had Androids couldn't get it.
Yeah. See, with the podcast, it's on mine, and a lot of people are on Stitcher. Stitcher Radio is what you use for the Android, which Libsyn allows you to distribute to them too.
So I went to my first blogging conference last summer, Blogging While Brown, amazing conference, and there was a gentleman there that taught us like everything about podcasting. I took tons of pictures of his slides and got his information and everything, but he mentioned Libsyn more than 10 times. So I heard it before because of him.
Yes.
But yeah, it was very interesting. So I mean, anybody out there who is interested in being any sort of content creator, these are the things you kind of need to learn and get to know.
Right.
And let me tell you how Fiverr is your best friend.
Yes, Fiverr is your best friend. Great resources on Fiverr. And
this new platform, Fiverr.
And one of the things that's been helpful for me too, though, of course, asking for support is my whole thing. And as you mentioned, your producer, this woman, Sky, who has started working with me, she and I used to work together years ago at Black Enterprise. She booked all of the events and is a great resource. People love her. She has the fantastic connections, but just excellent at booking guests and talent for different events. And she and I have been in touch over the years. She also booked people for me for Chic Rebellion. She has started to work with me recently for Support is Sexy. So that's been helpful too, because even though, as I mentioned, there are tons of great tools for follow-up and that kind of thing, having someone to help me on, as I said, some of those guests who might need a longer lead time, like Whoopi Goldberg and those people, she can help me with reaching out there. And she honestly just said she wanted to be a part of it and support me, which she has always done. So I love her. So I had to give her a shout out.
Oh, that's wonderful. And Whoopi was on already?
No, she's on my list, girl.
Okay.
Put it in the universe. Sarah Blakely from Spanx, Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Whoopi Goldberg, tons of others, but those are on my top 5.
And you know, I don't even have a list like that. I should do the same.
Yes, you gotta have a list. Gotta have your top 5. I have a wish list section that she works on, and I have other guests that I'm going after. We have it all broken up.
That is
Lisa
cool.
Nichols, she's up there too. You had Lisa Nichols, right? Yeah, she's fantastic. She's a sister in my head.
Yeah, she's so wonderful. And it was funny, when I first met her years ago at Essence, I told her, you know, I saw The Secret and was like, yeah, right, whatever. You
did. I love it.
Because the people didn't look like me. So I was like, whatever. You know what I mean? And the funny thing is, when it aired, people were calling me nonstop. How did you know about The Secret? I go, what are you talking about? They go, that's you. That's you.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I'm like,
in the movie you're talking about.
No, just the way, the whole secret of, you know, ask, believe, receive. They're like, Renee, you've been living that way. Like, you say it and then it happens. Like, that's the way you do things. And I was like, oh.
Right.
So then I watched, you know, the Oprah episode and I go, oh, you're right. You're right. But I had never heard of it, you know. So I watched the movie. The audiobook is my absolute favorite. But when she was on Oprah and showed her vision board, that's when I was sold. I was like,
see that.
Perhaps I need to make a vision board. And I made a vision board. That was 2006 or 7, I think. Made the vision board. And, girl, one of the largest things on that vision board was Essence. And I got an Essence magazine last year in April.
See, people don't understand the power of vision boards. And I always say, I just did a vision board party a couple of months ago in New Jersey. And I was saying, it's not that the vision boards are magical, but the idea of seeing something that you want to create each day, putting it up there and out there. That's why I keep mentioning my top 5 as far as interviews, because it's going to happen.
It is.
As you know, you attract these things by putting it out there, but they're so powerful. So I'm going to look and see if I could find that episode. I first became introduced to Lisa Nichols in The Secret, watching it years ago on Netflix, which I still just watch sometimes. Sometimes I just put it on because I love it. And I was like, who is this woman? And then I started seeing her more, and I bought her books and that kind of thing. And now I'm just addicted. She's, like I said, a sister in my head.
No, so when I told her that, she was like, isn't it a powerful thing? I said, it truly is. But the audiobook is actually told by Rhonda Byrne. And, Rhonda Byrne is Australian, I believe.
Yes.
And so she has an accent. But when I tell you the audiobook is far better than the movie, far better than the regular book, I can't even explain. But I went to sleep with the audiobook for long time. I can't even tell you how long. I used to listen to it as I was walking. As I went to work, I took the train, and then I had to walk a mile from the train. I listened to it every day. And when I tell you, just the other day, I said, maybe I'll start sleeping to The Secret again because I think I'm falling off. But it was so powerful. I could quote that audiobook. I loved it. And mind you, listen to it in my sleep. But I love that book. The audiobook I tell everybody, the movie was that audiobook is the best. And the other people, their voices come in too. So you would hear Lisa do her story. You would hear Bob Proctor do his. But the audiobook. And actually last night, what was it? Yeah, I was watching Eric Thomas. I'm sure you're familiar.
Yes.
I was watching something of his, and he said Bob Proctor is who put in his head to do his Breathe University.
Oh, smart. I love Bob Proctor too. And Eric, I listen to their podcast. They have a podcast as well.
Oh, okay.
Secret to Success, I think it's called. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. I'm going to get the audio. I'm going to go on Audible because I have all these credits on Audible.
You and me both.
And see if I can download The Secret. No, that's great.
So, Support is Sexy, the mastermind. So, what are you going to do with that?
Yeah, it's called Create Something Sexy, and it's createsomething.sexy.com. As I said, launching in the spring, and I want to have no more than 10 women, just because I want to make sure it's intimate enough that we can all share and give each other feedback and that kind of thing. And I did a beta group of it earlier this year with I think it was 5 women. And it's really making sure that we can hold each other accountable, create a space where we can share what we want to do or what we're already doing, help each other grow, know that support is sexy, which is the whole thing of what it's all about. But I think so many of us have ideas in our minds or something that we're thinking about that we want to create. And this isn't, the multi-million-dollar business, or maybe it is. This isn't something that's going to change your life drastically, or maybe it is. This is just something that you want to create, that you want to put out in the world, that you want to contribute, that you want to experience, and having an environment where those things can be cultivated. So it'll be a combination, of course, of the group, as we mentioned. I'll probably do it via Zoom, but the group coaching where we're all together and talking about what we're going to do. We're going to have hot seats where people talk about what they're creating, get feedback from the group on how to move forward or ideas for how to move forward. Feedback is information, which is what we just all have to remember. It's not necessarily criticism. Also, we're going to have experts come in during our weekly calls to talk about different things from vision to productivity to mindset to goal setting to people talking about their own experiences creating their businesses. And this is for people who are entrepreneurs already or who are moonlighting and working somewhere, or as I said, who just want to create something. It might not be, you're a full-time entrepreneur. This is really about creation. And then we'll also have I'll probably do one event where we're all in person. I'm in Atlanta, as you know, and a lot of the people are in New York or spreading around. I actually have one woman, Donita, who's in Swaziland. She was a part of the first group, so she won't be there in person, but I would like to do something where we all get together. So yeah, that'll be that. You also have opportunity for one-on-one calls with me as well, and then accountability partners within the group. So one of my biggest things, Renee, that I did in the earlier group, and we'll do with this one, again, we had another spreadsheet. Everybody had a tab. And on that sheet, we made sure to have, I believe in having your celebration first for the week. So what are you celebrating this week? Whether it's something you accomplished, like I went for a walk for 20 minutes, or, I did this thing related to the business, or I took some time for myself, or I did a date night with my husband, whatever it is. What are the things you're celebrating? Because I believe in starting with celebrations and gratitude, and then go into what are the things that you're committing to for the next week. So those are the things to help us remember to be grateful and celebrate, but then also hold us accountable. And I think that'll be what'll be the key to success for these women that I hope will join. So createsomething.sexy.com. Check it out. See if you're interested. But I think a mastermind is just an extension of the Support is Sexy brand to see if, to push the idea of support being important for all of us to move forward.
So I went to chicrebellionmedia.com today, and I saw that you have several offerings. So can you talk more about what kind of clients you're looking for those?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. Yeah, Chic Rebellion Media, as I mentioned, is sort of the evolution of chicrebellion.tv. So it's a media company that creates multimedia content. So that's digital, video, podcast, social content for companies really that either are led by women, that want to reach women, or that feature women. So I've done everything from working with companies like Huffington Post, which you'll see on there, and working in their voices vertical. I worked with them I believe it was last summer, in reaching women, but also a bigger audience. And then I've worked with individual entrepreneurs like Janaba Johnson Jones, who owns the Hudson Kitchen out in New Jersey, which is a great food entrepreneur business. And she helps food entrepreneurs start and grow their businesses. So I did everything from her to media coaching to helping her get her pictures taken care of and all of her materials, helping her develop talking points. So the services include things like content creation, media coaching, because I've been in media for 20 years, as some of it we talked about, brand storytelling. I say that I'm a storyteller. It's what I love to do. I have, as I said, since I was a little girl. But storytelling is such a powerful part of all of our lives. We all have a story. And I think for people who want to be out front or in the light, so to speak, it really is how are you shaping that story and how are you communicating that to people? So through Chic Rebellion Media, that's one of the services that we offer, is helping people not necessarily build their brand, but really, what is your story? What is your brand story? Whether it's before you start or you're already into your business or you're looking to grow, you have to have a story in mind of what you're doing and what you hope to achieve. So that's another part of our services. So primarily content strategy, media coaching, and brand storytelling.
Awesome. And you can go to her website, and we'll put all of it below, but chicrebellionmedia.com, and she has it right there. She has free consultations, and you can figure out if you'd like to work with Elayne, who I think would be a great person for you to work with. So
thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So how can we support you? I know you got to get to the 100,000 downloads. So
yes. Absolutely. Thank you for asking that too. I love that question. I always ask my guests that question. How can you support me? Going to supportissexypodcast.com, and that'll lead you to the page with all the past episodes. You can check them out, see the women who look interesting to you, stories that you want to hear. That's a great place to do that. Subscribe to the Support is Sexy podcast on iTunes or Stitcher. We're also on SoundCloud and Google Play. So wherever you're listening, subscribing really helps a lot. Listening is fantastic, but subscribing is great too. So this way you don't miss an episode, since I do so many, 5 a week, and they'll all be there even if you don't listen to them all in real time. So subscribing would help me. And then also going to, as you mentioned, chicrebellionmedia.com if you have a business or you're an entrepreneur, or anyone for that matter. I've helped people who don't have a business. They just want to get their story straight, so to speak, whether it's creating a bio or, as I said, talking points and those kinds of things. chicrebellionmedia.com. And then right now, the mastermind is the thing that's really important. Createsomething.sexy.com. All the information about the mastermind is there, the offerings, sign up button, and even there's an entry form that I'll email you after you sign up. It takes like 7 minutes to complete, literally 7 minutes. And this way we can have a conversation about what you want to create and see if the group is right for you. So that's launching within the next week or so. So if people want to do that right away, that would be great. So those are the primary ways to support me, and by supporting each other. That's the big thing too. It's not just me, but each other is important too for us, especially as women, especially during these times when women are being attacked in so many different ways. It's important for us to stand up for each other and with each other. So that would be a big support to me and to you.
So what do you tell maybe a freshman girl that's about to start at Hampton and has aspirations to get into media or, writing as such?
I would tell her to find someone that she can connect with who's already doing what she wants to do, whether that's someone who's a few paces ahead of her in school and they might be further down the road in their educational career, or someone who's at a company or a magazine or whatever it is where she wants to work. I think that's important for all of us, to find someone who's a few steps ahead of us, find someone who's at the same sort of place in life or career that we are, and then, of course, looking back and pulling people forward. So that's what I would tell anyone who is starting. Of course, practice and doing the work before you're published or quote unquote big, and all of those things is important too. Already be a writer, already be an editor, already know how to create a story, or at least your own idea of what it takes to create a story. Already be doing those things, even if you're not doing them already at a big outlet or publication. The Hampton Script is where I started, working at the school magazine or school newspaper, excuse me. It's still there. So get it popping over there at the Hampton Script, whatever you have to do, whatever your school newspaper is, or other opportunities at the school for you to get involved. But really, I would say focusing on, as you and I mentioned, finding that person. Who's the person that you want to be like or get to know? And you'll be surprised how many people will say yes when you reach out to support them. Sometimes people say no because of all kinds of reasons, and it's not even your business what the reason is they say no. You want to find the person that says yes. So many people want to help. A lot of times we think, I don't want to bother them, or they're too busy. We make excuses for people before we even ask. Find someone who you can ask for help. And if that help is just one conversation, they might not be able to be your mentor for the next 10 years, but they may be able to have a 10-minute call with you. I know I've done that for, I don't know, countless people. Someone will say, hey, I'd love for you to talk to my daughter or my friend, or like you said, this person's going to Hampton or they're interested in media. We'll schedule a time and schedule a call. And within that time, make sure you have, as to this young woman who would be a freshman, have your questions written down, what you want to ask this person, because most likely they just have that 15 minutes, 10 minutes, or whatever. They've allotted this time. You spend 2 seconds doing the niceties. How are you? Thank you so much, and that kind of thing. I'd love to just ask you these few questions. And then if it goes well and it goes over time, great. If not, at least you've gotten your 3 or 4, however many key questions in the beginning. So that's what I would say is important. I've gotten on the phone with people sometimes, and it's like, okay, great. So what do you need? What can I support you with? Which is what I usually say. And they're like, oh, I don't know. I just wanted to connect. Well, that doesn't work. Even if you don't know exactly what you want to do, what are you interested in? Why did you think I could help? Let's start there. So come to it, I should say, with questions in mind.
So in 5 years, where do you see Chic Rebellion Media and Support Is Sexy?
Oh, that's great. And Support Is Sexy? In 5 years, I see Chic Rebellion Media working with bigger contracts. I'm really looking at working with whether it's government contracts or federal, I guess you would say, contracts, bigger companies and that kind of thing, looking more into supplier diversity programs. Because I think I spoke to this woman, Carmetria Burton, who is the head of supplier diversity at Delta. Do you know Carmetria? I see you nodding. Yes. So Carmetria, she's fantastic. I met her at a She Who Dares event in Atlanta. And I had her as a guest on the show to talk about supplier diversity because it's come up more than once during the show being Support Is Sexy, the podcast, that a lot of women, women of color, but all women really, don't think about their businesses because they're quote unquote small businesses or even one person. They don't think of them as eligible or enticing to these bigger companies that are anxious to work with smaller companies like ours. So Carmetria really put that bug in my ear and was great in sharing information on that episode of the podcast. But this idea of really looking at those kinds of opportunities for me as a media company is very important. So I would, bring in people or however many I need to work on these different projects. But I really want to look at growth in different ways than doing what everybody else is doing. And maybe everybody else is already doing that. I just don't know. But this is what I'm looking at, the unique ways that I can grow so that it's sustainable, as you mentioned, in 5 years. I want it to be something that can be ongoing. So in addition to that part from the business standpoint, I also want to continue to develop products through Chic Rebellion Media as far as television, radio. I hope to have Support Is Sexy evolve into something beyond just the podcast or in addition to the podcast. So whether that's a television show or that's a radio show, or I've been told that my voice works for radio. So I'm going to look into that and just see what the possibilities are. So Chic Rebellion Media will produce other podcasts with other women and those kind of things. That's what I see in 5 years, not just being about my one brand or me as one person, I should say, producing content for people, really looking at how to grow. And for Support Is Sexy, in 5 years, as I said, I think it'll be a podcast and more. I'm working on a book. I have the proposal, so I'm sending that out to people for the Support Is Sexy book, and really see that all growing into whatever it's going to become. But I do think hosting, whether it's, like I said, TV or a segment or radio, which is funny because those are things I've always been the behind the scenes person. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've done television, as you have the Today Show and all these different shows, which has been great for a segment here and there. But I really love producing and being the behind the scenes person. But now I think it's time to sort of step out front and do some things to help, which will position me to be able to produce and those kind of things more. So that's what I'm looking at for the next 5 years. So I'm excited about the possibilities.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Elayne, for joining us this evening.
Thank
And
you.
next week, we will have Vashti Patrick Joseph, who is the blogger behind VPJ.com, as well as the new t-shirt line, venandrose.com. Vashti's one of my fellow West Indian sisters. She's representing the island of Grenada. And so we're very excited to have her next Tuesday. So she's the next Trep Tuesday. And please, everyone, don't forget to subscribe to Support is Sexy. I cannot tell you enough how great it is and how several of my friends have been guests. So you've got to listen to their stories and find out more about them and their businesses. So thank you so much. We will see you guys next Tuesday, 6 Pacific, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Ask Dr. Renee. I have an app. It's on Android phones only. It's Ask Dr. Renee as well. And, of course, I'm Ask Dr. Renee on all social media platforms. And we'll have all the links Elayne mentioned in the box below. So thank you so much and have a good night.
Bye.
Just wait, Elayne. Good stuff.